got a nice editor here, nothing crazy. Then we also need like this other section on the right that we need for like AI stuff. We're gonna do that later when we talk about AI stuff. So there's still gonna be a bunch of layout changes that's gonna be working on in here. But for now, let's try to work on the auto saving part, which if you think about it, it's really just us updating the entry. We're just updating the content. So that means we need to make a route to update. We need to make a function to update. And then we need to make the logic that does the updating. So let's get to work. We will go into our routes, API/journal. Just following REST conventions, we'll make another folder in here underneath journal called ID. So that way you can make a patch request to /API/journal/ the ID of the journal which you want to patch. So on the inside of that, it's not an API route unless we make a route.ts file. And then we want to export const patch. So we're gonna do a patch and not a put. Honestly, it doesn't matter. We can do whatever we want with whatever function we want. The verbs don't change our logic, our behavior. It just changes the expectations of the client that's issuing the request. In this case, the expectation of a patch is that you did an update, but you didn't override that whole thing in the database. You just patched it with you changed some of the properties on it. Whereas a put would be like, replace this whole thing with this thing. That's the difference. They're both updates. One just replaces, the other one just updates. So when I think of update, I actually think of patch. And when I think of like put, I think of replace. But again, you don't have to do any of that. You can make patch do get if you want. You can make get do post. It doesn't matter. You can do whatever you want. If you use GraphQL, they only ever do post requests. And they only ever do 200 status codes, even on errors. It doesn't matter. So it's just up to, do you want to tap into how the web has been built since before any of us were born? Then yeah, you would do this. Okay, cool. Patch, what are we gonna do here? Well, we need access to the params. So the first thing is let's get the request. So we have the request here. And then the params is the next argument, which is an object. We can just destructure it and get params like that. That'll give us params. And then the first thing we want to do is, because we need to update we want to update the entry, we first need to know who this user is. So you already know what I'm about to do. Let me make this async. Await get user by clerk ID, like that. So we got our user, and then we can say updated entry is await. Let's bring in Prisma dot journal entry dot, and then we're just gonna say update. And then for update, we first need to say where. So find the thing that we want to update. In this case, we want to do our combo index here. And we want to find the user ID who belongs to user ID and the ID that belongs to params.id. And I know it's called ID on params because that's what I called the folder. It's ID. Whatever I called the folder, that's what params is going to have on it. And this thing's just still freaking out because it's like, oh, you forgot to add a data thing. So we're going to add data. And then data is like what we want to update. Like what is the update in which you are issuing? So in this case, I want to update, content. So that means content's going to come in from the request object. So we can grab that. So I can say, I'm going to destructure it, assuming the client's going to send up an object with a content property on it. And since we're writing the code, it is going to do that. And we can just await requests.json. And that's how you get the body. if you've ever used Express or anything else like that in the past, you've probably done like rec.body. Next.js uses web standards. It uses the request standard. So this request standard that's default in the web. I'll open this. This is how you would get JSON from it, and it says it right here. Returns a promise that resolves the result of parsing the request body as JSON, request.json. Cool. So we got the content. We got the updated thing. Should be good to go. Let's just return next response dot JSON. I'm gonna put a data property on there with the updated entry. Alrighty, and then we're gonna head over to our utils API, and we need to make a function here in which we update an entry. So let's do that. So const export const. Actually, I'll do this at the top. Some more screen real estate. Update entry. This is just going to, I guess we could just take the content for now, since we know that's the only thing we're updating. Oh, I guess we need the ID as well. Never mind. So we'll say ID and then the content like that. And then what we can do is we can just say res equals await fetch. We're going to make a new request like so. That request takes in a URL. So we can say create URL, which is going to be /API/journal/ and we need to interpolate the ID here. So we'll change that to a template string. There we go. And then request takes in a second argument for our method, which is patch, since we did the patch. And then the body is going to be JSON stringify an object that has a content property on it, because that's what we're expecting on the back end. If you remember, we're expecting content on the body. So I'm passing that up like that. Cool. And same thing. If res.ok, then we can just say, yeah, give me the data, await res.json, and return data.data. Really build an abstraction around this since we repeated ourselves like twice already, but it's fine. I feel like I need more reps using the new request object anyway, so I don't mind doing it until it becomes annoying to me, because it's still somewhat new. So I don't mind getting those reps in. Yes?
How would we do error handling here?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on what you want to do with the error, but so basically res.ok just means that it was a status code. It was like a non-400 or 500 status code. If that's the truth, then this is good. Anything else is bad, right? This is terrible. But what you would probably want to do is, well, there's many different ways to handle an error, right? So one, you might get an error status code. If that's the case, this else would be fine. The other case is you get a good status code, but for some reason this breaks, the trying to get JSON breaks, so then you would need a try catch in here, right? So you would have to do that. Or you could just try catch the entire fetch call. You just try catch this entire thing, and then try to handle the error that way too. But because this function is completely isolated from the UI, and the UIs can be either server or client, it's probably better just to return, when you find your error, when error, it's probably better just to, return something like, error true or something like that, code, whatever your codes are, and then like, message for UI. You can put a message here if you wanted to. And then that way, any UI, whether it's front end or back end, can take that and do whatever they need to do with it. That's probably how I would do it. I mean, you can even have the back end do this too. You can have the back end send back errors. Any other questions? Yeah.
I don't see a header object. Do we get some kind of abstraction for it? Where do we specify the content type?
The header option. Oh, in the request object, there's a header option in here somewhere. Yeah, you just do headers like this. You can pass it in. I guess they're asking where do we put it because I'm not using it. Well, it's just implied that if you add a body that you're probably doing JSON. So you don't have to add the headers there. It's implied. You don't have to be specific using the request object. The request object was made, in late 2020s, early 2020. So it just knows that you're probably doing JSON, whereas like everything before that didn't prioritize that. So it's just making a really good assumption that that's what you want. But if you want to do headers, you could say headers, which actually you could use the new headers like this. Yeah, there's a header standard too. There's all types of stuff. I like it. I'm all for it.